good morning, boys and girls, and all of God's children. Welcome to the South District Church School neighborhood. I'm Sister Angie Spears, the excited South District Church School Superintendent, and our presiding elder is the Reverend Janet Jenkins Sturdivant of the South District of the Philadelphia Annual Conference. Again, we welcome you today. Our special word for today is insight. Insight. We're now in our summer quarter, where our theme for the quarter is Many Faces of Wisdom. And we've been in the book of Proverbs for the entire month of June. Today's lesson is going to come from Proverbs chapter 9. And our title is Feast with Wisdom. Feast with Wisdom. And when we talk about a feast, do we know what a feast is? It's something special. You'll hear about it in the Bible. Sometimes the king will have a feast. It's not just a little meal. It's like a big banquet. And when it's a feast, everything is special. Everything is planned. There's many different courses. It's a very big meal. When I mentioned feast to, was it Patches? No, it was Buttercup who told me that every other year for Thanksgiving, they visit the grandparents on his father's side of the family. And when they go there for Thanksgiving, that grandmother, she cooks and she cooks and she cooks. Isn't that what you told me, Buttercup? She plans everything. She makes pies and cakes. Normally she starts planning this feast a good week in advance. She makes gravies from scratch. When she does her pie, she rolls out the pie dough. Even her gravy doesn't come from a jar. She does the gravy from scratch. And Buttercup says that at the end of the meal, his dad will sit in a favorite chair and rub his tummy and say, "Oh, Mom, that was really a feast." So Buttercup knows what it is to have a feast. And as we look at that word insight, what did you share with me, Patches? Insight is getting an inside view at things. And a really good example, if we remember last week, Patches saying that a friend of his at school had an uncle come for career day. And when he was sharing, this particular uncle works at NASA, and he was able to share a lot of information, like the inside, because he knows it. And when there was time for questions and answers, Patches got a lot of really good information, because here's somebody that knows from the inside what NASA's like because he works there. And he told Patches, he said, "I can tell you the type of schools you should go to. I can tell you what types of courses you should take. Even when you're in school now, make sure to take science class courses. Make sure to take the really top math courses, because you'll really be able to use those." And then he told Patches, "Listen," he says, "when you get to high school, I want you to give me a call, because at that time I can give you even more insight of some really important things that you can do, so that when you are ready to apply for NASA, you can have a really good chance." So insight is so important. So we want to think of that when we're thinking about Proverbs. Let's go into our lesson. And we're using our AME literature. This is our junior book. Our lesson today is coming from Proverbs 9. Here we go. And we're reading verses 1 through 6, but 8 through 10, and 13 through 18. I'm not going to read all of that, but let's start. Proverbs 9, 1 through 6. And this is wisdom. Remember, sometimes wisdom is like a person calling to us. And today she's calling us to a feast. "Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars." So she has this beautiful home. "She has slaughtered her animals. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table." So she's planning everything for this feast. She has sent out her servant girls. She calls from the highest places in the town. You that are simple, turn in here. To those without sense, she says, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. So do you see now? Wisdom is preparing this feast, and she's going like to the top of the town and telling everybody, I want you to come in. I want you to get wisdom. I want you to get insight. And what we know about wisdom, it's for everybody who will ask of it. I'm hoping that during this summer in particular, you'll take the time to read the entire chapters of the entire book of Proverbs, because it's filled with such good wisdom. This has been, for the month of June, we've been in Proverbs 1 and 2. Last week we were in chapter 8, this week chapter 9. But if you take the time to read that entire book of Proverbs, you're going to get great insight into wisdom. And remember that wisdom comes from God, and He gives it to us freely because He wants us to be successful. There are a couple of scriptures in Proverbs that I find very, very helpful. And they are Proverbs 1:9-11, which is, your word have I hid in my heart so that I might not sin against you. The other one is Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. And another favorite of mine is Psalm 119:105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. God's word is full of wisdom. God gives us His word to let us know how to have a successful life. It's like He gives us our life, and then He gives us a book of instruction so that we can live the life in the very best way. And that book is the Bible, because it's God's holy word. So again, I trust that you will enjoy the book of Proverbs over the summer. Don't stop at just what we've read over the last few weeks. Take the time to read the book of Proverbs. Get wisdom. And as you know, as we're looking at the news and the pandemic with the coronavirus, etc., a lot of states are going, I wonder when it's going to be wise to open up markets again. I wonder when it's going to be wise for people to go back into their churches or go back and get their hairs done and things like that. And sometimes people are saying, I don't think that was a wise decision, because it seems like the virus is growing again in bigger numbers. So we want to use wisdom in every way possible, and that wisdom comes from God. We thank you so very much. Now here's our key verse for today. We don't want to stop without that. It's Proverbs 9, and it is our verse number 6. Proverbs 9:6. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. Let's see if you can do that with me. Lay aside immaturity and in the way of, can you fill that out with me? Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. Excellent, excellent. Next week, Our lesson is going to be called Wisdom's Vindication, and we'll be in the book of Matthew. So we'll be in the New Testament, chapter 11, verses 7 through 19. Again, we thank you for joining us today. Be blessed.